You can Google and find out which ones are dead. Some of them are dead. Some still in prison. Some released. But there's all kinds of articles about that. All right, so here's an MKUltra question, but it's more contemporary. I don't know if you want to take this. It's about Kanye's recent behavior, whether you think he's been MKUltra'd.
Well, I've spoken to a lot of survivors of MKUltra. I think we're all MKUltra, frankly. That's what happens to us via the books we read, the violence we look at when we watch a film, or we listen to the news. We're in shock constantly. However, one of the things that MKUltra is used for is actors. To help them get into the role. There are some actors that I'm not going to name right now who stay in the role. And when you hear that somebody stays in the role, it's because they're as far as what I have been told, they're MKUltra. Now we all know that, Harley outed Harley Pasternak, who I wrote about on my Substack at the time that it happened, as being his handler. Does he have another handler? Perhaps, because he is acting very strangely on X.
All right, you got a question from Pearl. What do you think? Do you think Pamela Anderson knew, and her ex-husband Tommy, and we had all the models from that era, weren't they? I mean, Pam was like so famous back then. Playboy bunnies and Baywatch girls.
I mean, like I said, I think that these people are MKUltra. We know that Marilyn Monroe, for example, Hefner did not use her on his cover or by the spot next to where she is buried, where that's where he's buried himself, right next to Marilyn, without her permission. And I'm sure she hates it, but what can we do? Marilyn was allowed into a military lab called Laurel Canyon. I'm trying to remember the name. However, she became very famous, and it is said that there are certain spots on, let's say, someone's face, or there's some unique feature that allows people who are also part of this group to be able to see who is part of this training, let's say, and partake. So Marilyn had this mole on her, around her lip area. And there are other things that people look at to see if somebody is a monarch-trained slave. And that would be the wearing of tiger print clothing, leopard print clothing, anything cat related in the clothing, so that when we watch the movie Lolita, we see a lot of leopard prints everywhere. When we watch Stanley Kubrick's film Eyes Wide Shut, we see the tiger print in the toy store at the end. We see all the tigers. In Epstein's house, he had large stuffed tigers, and that too is MKUltra. And so did she know, is she going to talk about it? I mean, that's what she was. She was a monarch slave. Even Anna Nicole Smith at the Playboy Mansion was allowed, given by Hef to be used by anyone. Now, here's what Hef did. He did, let's say, DRUG, just like it's being alleged with Combs. Even Anna Nicole Smith, which is why she became such a substance abuser. These substances are given to these girls and that's what Bill Cosby was accused of. The people pass out, you can do anything to them, and Anna Nicole was not safe. I don't believe that Pamela Anderson was safe. Are they going to say anything wrong No, because the minute you say something wrong, you're no longer in the club and you're no longer of any value and you can be unalived. So, yeah, I mean, did she know? She's not a stupid girl.
All right, for all the questions coming in about Richard Kerr and Kincora and Mountbatten, I'll take that. So I've written a book called Elite Predators, from Mountbatten and Saville to Maxwell and Epstein, and we spoke to Richard Kerr, and Richard Kerr said that Mountbatten didn't prey on boys from Kincora, but he was preying on boys, and that was a motivation for him getting unalived, the bomb going off on the boat. But people asking about the drop in the this isn't people logging off.
Wow.
This is YouTube.
Yeah.
Forcing people off.
Yeah.
People were dropped from the stream, not voluntarily. They were forcibly dropped from the stream around the time we started talking about Richard Kerr. How that happens, I don't know the mechanics behind it, but it has happened a few times when we've been talking about controversial things. And Casey's asking you about Ted Turner.
I mean, he's a man in a powerful position. He's part of the elite.
Secret Watch, have you ever looked into Nicole Kidman? Her family was mentioned in a major Australian case.
I have, but if I speak about her father, we really will be just cut off the air.
All right. Do you want to comment on US aid? We've had several questions come in about that, and the group that you're talking about, is it related to them?
I looked at that briefly. I haven't really done enough study into that. But listen, guys, let's say, for example, the Clinton Foundation supposed to help people. It doesn't. I mean, I volunteered and I created a volunteer group when Hurricane Katrina happened in 2005. Eventually, my group spread into my having 500 volunteers across the country. And when we heard, and we were the first of our kind, and when we heard that Clinton had created some thing, and I did not know it was with Jeff. I did not know who Jeff was at the time. And I personally sent appeals because I was contacting the head of the Red Cross. I was the head of my thing, although I didn't have time to go through. I was so busy helping people one-on-one and connecting somebody who can help with victims and teaching and training my 500 volunteers that I didn't have time to set myself up as a nonprofit, although I tried and I started. But as you can see, I get caught into the nook and cranny of things. But I got a letter back from the Clinton people. Oh, you're doing an amazing job. No help coming. So they weren't there necessarily to help. They were probably there to snap up some children, because while I was doing this, all the newspapers would call me for information, because I had, again, all these people helping, all these victims calling me 24/7. And I was in constant contact with one AP reporter. And he called me one day and he said, "Hey, have you heard about the side of their parents? And they're now selling their bodies in order to survive, to be able to buy food and get shelter." And I was like, what do you, and that had been the first instance of, let's call it the transportation or use of younger people that I had encountered. And then I was like, no, but you have to, we have to help these kids. And so when I followed up with him, he was very evasive. He didn't want to talk about it. In hindsight, when I see who Clinton was related to, and frankly, I know I've written about Clinton's previous relationship with another man who preceded Jeff, who did the very same thing and connected him to not of age girls who they again gave the white substance to and they took advantage of, and who some of them were unalived. I think the only reason perhaps he shows up at these places in Haiti or goes to Africa or goes to places where there's is to obtain, because a person can be sold. and you can get a lot of money for that person, and that person can be sold repeatedly. So the sale of let's say minors, and by the way, Avicii is somebody that I sort of knew, and Avicii was working to expose. He was a DJ. He was working to expose this very thing that we're discussing, and he was unalived. So whenever you try to bring awareness to this, some harm comes to you. So I think any of these aid places or anything, I mean, do I think they really help? No.
We've had several of the viewers confirm they were bumped off. I'll read this one. I got dropped 3 times and my internet connection was dropped just watching this in Canada. I had no other interruptions on other electronics using the internet at that time. It was just your stream. So,
wow.
Next question. Do you think Prince Andrew's covering for some of his family and that's why he's still part of the family?
I mean, they're part of the group that runs this. And as part of the group that runs this, they have a preference for, let's call it, young blood.
All right. So does Kirby know the Process Church now runs an animal shelter in Arizona?
Yes, I am aware of that.
And regarding the Franklin scandal, do you find it suspicious that a Jesuit hospital, Creighton University, cared for the kids of Boys Town?
I have never heard of the Creighton University caring for the children of Boys Town.
Yeah, that is interesting. When will you come back for another episode? Hopefully in about 2 weeks' time. I was going to invite.
Yeah, whenever Sean and I can find a time.
Who sold Epstein's black book? As far as I'm aware, it wasn't it. Our friend released it to, and the names obviously came from Maxwell, but wasn't it our friend who released it to the media?
Well, initially, Jeff's butler, something Rodriguez, took it as a way to have life insurance. And he presented it to Bradley Edwards, who then got J. Stanley Pottinger, who was connected to the CIA. And he got David Boies, who was the attorney for Bill Clinton and also the attorney for Harvey Weinstein. He took it to Brad Edwards and he tried to then sell it to Brad Edwards. Brad Edwards turned around and frankly, I'll never personally forgive him for this. He called the FBI, and then Alfredo Rodriguez was incarcerated, and then he was unalived, fast-acting cancer. And then Nick Bryant got his hands on it from Bradley Edwards, and